Welcome and thanks for joining us for Workday Chats, where we're living at work, literally here with this panel. I'm your host for today's session. I'm Barbie McGann, and if you have any questions, share them in the comments below. In this spotlight today, we brought together today's really exclusive panel to share their insights on navigating change across all areas of the business in this dynamic climate we all find ourselves in. I'm joined today by my wonderful workmates here that you see, Christina Golt, wave if you can, Dave Simon, and Terrence Wampler. So no matter what function within your organization, you're likely, like us, to be navigating change on a daily basis. And we've all seen incredible changes to the way we work, like living at work. So this is not a one-time shift in light of COVID-19. This is something that we're experiencing that is going to change the way we work forevermore. So I'd like to invite and open up with the panel to talk about the top challenges that each of them are facing in their different roles, from HR with Christina Golt to finance with Terrence Wampler to IT with Dave Sohegan. And can you please share with the audience some of the challenges that you experience in living at work today? Who would like to start? Christina?
Sure. Definitely, challenges just getting together with your teams, everybody being able to, innovate maybe, like the spontaneity is missing in some ways. Those are definitely some of the challenges. And I think for all of our teams too, like you're not just a worker, right? When you think about living, you're a caregiver, you're a short order cook, you're a teacher. So definitely, lots of challenges in that respect.
Absolutely. How about you, Terrence?
Well, I'll give you an example. We just had an advisory board meeting today with 25 customers, and most of them were pretty senior folks, so CFOs, chief accounting officers, those kind of people. And they're suffering through all the same thing as the other workers, right? There's dog barking, there's doorbell ringing, there's,
Speaking of dog barking,
I know.
I'm like, can somebody get this thing?
Everybody's doing their best to be professional, and it's shocking to me. They sat through 4 hours of pretty intense, product updates, and they were all very good about being focused and making it work. And I think part of that resiliency is some of the technology tools that we have available to us, as well as just their personality to want to make the solutions better, right? But it was pretty tough for everyone.
Now, have you had anyone accidentally show up in your frame, like your family?
Absolutely, yes.
I've seen cats walk through as well. That's one of my favorite ones. My cat's done that a couple of times. Yeah. So in IT, certainly the challenge in large part was actually responding on behalf of most of the organization, getting people ready and able to work from home. It was, a huge challenge certainly for many IT departments. And I think, for us, it was certainly a challenge to shift in that way. I think also, I'll echo what Christina said about innovation. It's a challenge. It's tough to, I think we've seen such great productivity out of in the IT group, but also like productivity of what? Like just fighting fires, dealing with stuff that comes up, but the bigger sort of strategic level stuff and the innovation that you need to think that way, I think is much more challenging when people are so separated and have less sort of communal activity.
Yeah, what are some tips, or what's been critical for you to help during this time? How do you inspire your teams, and how do you navigate through these changes? Any advice?
Yeah, I can jump in on that. There's, I think a big part of it is making sure that you're keeping in touch with the whole team, motivating them. We use OKRs for part of that, keeping up on that, and making sure that those sort of objectives remain strategic. And even though I think people respond really well when they've got that sort of measurement and it's around those higher level goals. So it's actually really beneficial to have people have those big targets during this time, when other times they can feel like, I have to be measured on this thing. It's really valuable. It gives people some structure, which I think is often missing when you're, it wasn't working from home, it's living at work.
Yes,
I got to get this straight in terms of the terminology. But I think that structure is really helpful to people, and keeping consistent on that structure, even though it doesn't, I think the biggest challenge in this is that chance interaction. Everything becomes just a little bit more transactional the more it goes into a virtual environment. And I think that will remain a challenge.
That's great. And probably the OKRs keep them focused, right? Because, that's really important during this time, is kind of a way to keep focused.
They're great for me personally too. My OKRs are big, go back and check, am I really aligned to what I need to be doing to get to those bigger strategic goals?
That's fantastic. Terrence, Christine, anything to add to that?
Well, you can even go a little beyond OKRs, right? There's other, minor milestone things that you can post and keep up to date, and you can do games with it, right? So with technologies, any sort of.
Oh, I love games.
So we'll in the finance team, we'll have for every Friday, someone will have to, name their favorite rock band using emojis or a movie or something.
You can do that with emojis? You can do rock bands with emojis?
It's very
I got to get some new emojis.
It's very impressive, but it kind of keeps everybody together, and you can give updates of milestones or events or thank yous or other things that people post, and then you can also add a game or other social activity to it, so that it's a reminder, but it's also fun. It's not just, a random note asking for status kind of thing. So I think there's some interesting stuff you can do like that.
Well, I can't wait to get some emojis from you. I want to see that. How about you, Christina? I know your team has fun backgrounds that you guys use.
Yeah, so you definitely, we switch out. We have a theme on the backgrounds, and then we're doing some team building things. But Terrence, like you mentioned, we're getting the teams together. I mean, right now we're in a good spot. We've just kind of finished an update, so there's some celebration going on. But we're doing things like Family Feud that we're playing virtually, Pictionary, all of those things. But I'll say one of the things too that I think is important during this time is really because things are not as spontaneous as they are, or you're not meeting people in the hallways, is how do you find those spaces and making that space for people to share how they're feeling about different things. Yeah. And so, I think it's making sure you have those conversations, but also, what are other ways to make sure you're checking in on them and measuring sentiment.
That's I was going to ask that, how do you create that culture? One of the things that Workday is known for is that amazing culture that we have, that sense of belonging and inclusion. How do you do it? And maybe this one's for you, David, through a digital medium, a digital workspace. How do you create that culture, that sense of belonging, that inclusion, that community? Any insights there?
I still, it's a bit of a puzzle for me too. Thankfully, this pandemic is not going to last forever. I think, but I think it's in part, if you have that foundation of a really strong culture and you have those sort of connections, then it's much easier to continue them. And I've certainly found that's the case for my team, that the Workday culture and the culture that we have for our group really has carried through this time, and the personal challenges people have been facing, they're really open to sharing those either individually or in a group. And if that isn't there, it makes it tough. I do know a friend of mine who's co-founder of WalkMe, Rafi Swery, said he's been doing overlapping meetings. His meetings overlapping by 5 or 10 minutes. He just invites people to show up a few minutes before and a few minutes after. I don't, I haven't tried it yet. I think it's a neat idea. And so they sort of have chance encounters with each other when they're supposed to be meeting with him. And I think those sort of strategies are really useful. But it is, the hope is certainly that this particular way of working 100% is temporary, and then preparing culturally also for whatever's next, which won't be the same as what we were used to, but it'll be something different than we have right now for sure.
I think it's great. I love Dave, how we saw you on your treadmill earlier.
Yeah, I'll turn it back on for a moment here, but just, keep moving. I'm not going to leave it on because it's just distracting to everybody. I'm bobbing around, but yeah, it is nice to be able to.
I think that's the new way of working. Not only are you getting work done, you're getting fit as you do it. I want to go get my bike, right, and bring it in.
Yeah, I think that's the right call.
Steady your steps in, all great.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Christina, I see you walking and all the time, doing your meetings outside.
Yeah, so lots of walk and talks, definitely
Yeah.
doing that, and taking advantage of that. Well, the other is, you get Zoom fatigue, right? So you want to make sure that people don't feel like they have to be on video. And so getting a chance to go outside and enjoy, when we can, and enjoying the sunshine.
Exactly, when we can.
It's been a little challenging here in California and also in Portland, right?
Yeah, for sure.
One of the other things that has been done for us as a whole division is we try to block off Wednesday afternoons there are no Zoom meetings, right? So we are trying to make some structure around that too. Like,
oh, that's great.
Schedules. So,
is that working? Are you able to really take Wednesday off?
Absolutely.
That's fantastic. Now, do you do work, or do you kind of just use it for personal time or whatever you need?
For me, it's only been a few weeks. I've probably split it. Some personal, go for a walk, some work. But it's really beneficial to folks, right? It's not just giving guys, alternate work schedules, because that's something you can do too, but just making sure they know there's a dedicated time that they can set aside if they have to schedule doctor's appointments or dentist appointments, or they just need to get their work done and don't want to be on a Zoom call. So
flexibility, I like that, right?
Well, giving you that time to focus also, right? Where if you think about just living in the Zoom world, right, where you're going from one meeting to the next, that context switching makes it really hard to focus and do chunks of work.
No, I think that's great. A lot of these things that you're talking about really help us to become more agile organizations in the way they work, in the way we communicate, the way we connect. Any other suggestions on and how this will shape us going forward and being more agile and resilient?
That's a tough one in terms of the resilient part, I think, is because I'll give you the example.
Sure.
You talked about being in California and there were some wildfires here. Well, we had some folks on our team that actually lived in areas that they had to be evacuated. So now imagine, right, you're shelter in place, you're not supposed to be outside, you've got Zoom fatigue, and you're undergoing the stress of having to be evacuated.
That's agile to adapt to that.
It's really impressive that the people who went through that were able to manage it, take the time they needed off work to get it done. Management was supportive of that. And our ability to react to it very naturally and not panic, not think it's a big deal, make sure that people were safe. It seemed very natural, and it may not have been as natural if we hadn't been living through some of the environment that we had now. So I think there is some resilience starting to come into that, new things that come up, you just take them in stride and move forward, right?
Yeah, that's a great example. Christina and Dave, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think for me, that resilience is a really valuable characteristic, and I've always said everybody hates change. There's no one on the planet that likes change, and there's also in the business we're in, talking to technical folks, often they say, no, I'm a change agent. I'm like, well, yeah, you love change as long as you're in charge of it. As soon as somebody else, talk to your spouse about whether you are a person that likes change or not, and see what their opinion is on that. And I think. But that resilience is knowing that you'll make it through. When a change happens, you may not be happy about it. It may not be fun. It's, and then, moving beyond that to seeing that as an opportunity for transformation in some way, seeing the opportunities that come up. And that's both at a leadership level and individual level, to see those changes, whether they're forced upon you or not, to reflect at some point after you've dealt with the change and say, hey, this might be a good thing. Maybe there's a positive in this.
And I'm so glad you touched on that, because that's what I'm seeing too, kind of to what Terrence said as well, is people are taking these challenges and they're turning them into opportunities. And these opportunities are really leading into great outcomes for everyone. Now, I'm an eternal optimist. I tend to look at everything that way, but it's great to see across the organization, and you guys yourself seeing it within your organizations.
Yeah, I mean, because everything's changed, right? And I mean, if we think about just the workforce disruption that we've seen, at the scale and speed, change always happens and happens fast, but the scale and speed of what we just saw and what we're seeing, it really makes things very interesting. And in terms of leadership, you really do have to think differently, and have to be able to adapt quickly. But watching our teams be able to deliver product completely remotely, right? Yeah. Watching our customers go live completely remotely. right? Where none of the consultants are there. You know, they're closing their books completely remotely, you know, so being able to do all that, it just shows us that it's challenging things that we believed were not possible.
And it's amazing to see all the new skills and proficiencies that people are developing, right? It's incredible. Like in Workday, I love to look at people's skill signatures and how much they've changed just in the time that we've been in the pandemic. But the amount of learning and new skill development and the digital acceleration has really brought that to bear.
Yeah, for sure. I certainly noticed my mom, who's almost 80 years old, she's an expert at Zoom all of a sudden.
Oh, I know.
I think, 6 months ago, she didn't know how to operate the thing, but everybody's getting new skills.
Yeah, and Instacart. She probably orders everything from Instacart. I'm a big fan of Instacart. I don't go shopping anymore. I don't always get what I pick, but that's fantastic about that skills development. And then I've seen a huge uptick in learning. Christina, I bet you, especially from your perspective, just in the amount of learning that people are doing online and how that is changing is just rapid.
Yeah, I think, learning has never been more important. Definitely as we see, things changing and keeping up with change or adapting to the change, learning plays a really key role, especially as we look at the ways of working change. And so how do you work differently? And, allowing people to understand how they learn those things. And I mean, when we think about, everybody, being locked down in their homes and living at work, people did have time to actually explore other things. And so, being able to do that all remotely is also very, very key. But we see across the board from our customers where we've seen just enrollments in learning go up, 10 times, where we really, and I think actually that is how companies are communicating with their people is via learning.
Yeah, that was neat to see too, that not only they're using our own learning for training and learning, but also for communication.
Yes.
Which is really interesting. And Terrence, I bet you're seeing a lot in your space, just automation, digital, through all of the automation work that you're doing within finance, which is fantastic. Like Christina said, closing the books remotely. Who would have thought that would be possible?
Well, and what's really amazing, doing that remotely and also doing complicated planning, right? So what's happening is part of that resilience now is people are modeling lots of scenarios more and more frequently, right?
It's like they're positive scenarios, right?
Yeah, there's best and worst outcomes, and they're modeling. Yeah. And every change that happens, in other words, one of the things that has happened is folks have accelerated their planning cycles, right? Meaning the frequency of their planning cycles, simply because, I can close my books remotely, the information I get more accurate, and there's like demand for facts and all these things, but it's really about changing cycles, right? Like really wanting to do like planning and analysis and get away from transactions and have everything be automated and somebody take care of it for you. That's right.
That's amazing.
That's the skill signature change that you're seeing in finance, right? So they're not transaction operators; they're now strategic advisors.
Very strategic.
And they have to learn how to do that, right? Not everybody in finance has those skills. So.
And that's the other thing I'm seeing, Terrence, too. With the fact that we have all three of you on the panel, is the coordination between HR, finance, and IT is closer than ever before. Oh. And we saw this return to the workplace, right? And coming back to your continuous planning, here we thought we'd have a lot more offices opened and people back into the workplace. So how many times have we had to regenerate those plans? And then the coordination between, IT, HR, and finance all the time to do this continuous planning. It's just been fantastic.
Yeah, very impressive.
Yeah, and I think I was talking with the CIO who's a customer, and she said she went from supporting offices in 50 countries to 5,000 home offices.
Right.
And IT needs to coordinate with the rest of the business and really direct a lot of that activity, be the center point for it. And I think that's a real opportunity to break down some walls that often appear between different parts of the business, those silos.
Yeah, and I think if you think about all the functions that we support, right, from IT, HR, finance, all of them have become more visible, more vital, and more stressful, right? And so, you know, really, they do really have to work together to be able to communicate and just get stuff done.
Mm-hmm. I agree so much. What, last comments or word of advice could you give the audience here on how you stay sane, how you stay positive in navigating this turbulent world that we live in?
Yeah, I can start. I actually take a lesson from my kids. So I've got a senior in high school and a freshman in high school, and I've been
You look too young for that, Terrence.
Their ability to adapt to this is amazing. Like I can use my senior, trying to go through the college application process and figure out where she's going to go and what she's going to do. And college applications have completely changed. They're not accepting SAT and ACT scores anymore at most of the schools.
That's a good thing for my daughter.
Yeah. now they're taking personal statements, and and just to watch her and her friends just adapt to this, even though there's this traditional thing that stuff happens and you throw them a curve, and she doesn't even know if she goes to a school, if she's going to be in class. Right, because she's got friends that were like at Oregon State or Oregon, and they've had to be evacuated, or they're at their dorm, but they're actually not in class. And the kids just, their ability to look at it as a problem or an issue they can't control, they only control their reaction to it, and then making the best of that. I use them as my guide.
Wow, that is great.
Because they're a lot more adaptive than we are.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah,
they probably don't know what it's like to have a stable.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be chaos for them, right? When things are calm and they're
that's right. Yeah.
I guess I'll go next.
Yeah.
In terms of I'm in terms of positivity, I'm really inspired by our customers and my teams. Where for our customers, just watching how they have adapted and how they've looked at doing things differently really makes you think that there is a lot of opportunity to think of how we do things differently. So I appreciate that, and just my teams, again, being able to deliver when people don't think you can do it, they've been able to do that. So so that definitely has kept me positive and really not, I think part of it, you have to weigh like, all right, like don't expect 110%, capacity out of everybody now that we can see that they can do all this work. But, I think there's definitely a balance there, but it is truly inspiring actually to see what people can do.
Absolutely. And anything left, Dave, to
yeah,
add to that?
Yeah, no, I'll echo. I've got, my kids are older than your guys, but
not possible.
Yeah, 19 and 24. So one is in college, U of O, and was evacuated too. So, but I think for me, it's focusing on that big picture of this is temporary. This too shall pass. But there's a challenge in that too, which is the next crisis is upon us, which is it's not some other disaster. It's that we're moving to something new.
It's called the election.
Right. Well, yeah, that too. But it's that we're right now in a state of flux, right? We know that what's going on right now is not going to continue. So there's something new coming, and we don't know what it is. And that the crisis is really the change, not the thing that happens, but the fact you have to change. And that's coming fairly soon, within a year or 2 years, whenever we get into whatever is the new or next normal. That change will be difficult as well, because it won't be like it is. We've kind of gotten used to this ridiculous lifestyle, but it's not going to last. It's going to be something else. And I think keeping that big picture in mind is, for me, the thing that keeps me sane.
So embrace change from Dave and from Terrence. And the whole thing is you can't control it, so go with the flow.
Yeah.
And Christina is, and you do amazing things like we've seen for our customers and our employees when presented with that. Is that a way to sum it up?
Yeah, I'd say.
Which leads us to our upcoming Conversations for a Changing World on October 20th, where we'll dig into each of these topics in much greater detail, and you'll hear from additional industry change makers. We will share a link to register for the event in the comments below. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your viewpoints with me and with our audience today and our amazing panel. I really appreciate your time. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you soon.